From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. arrived in the United Arab Emirates or UAE late Monday evening for a one-day working visit, following an invitation from UAE President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The president's aircraft landed at 11:09 in the evening, local time, at Al Bateen Airport in Abu Dhabi. He was welcomed by UAE Minister of State His Excellency Saeed Al Hayeri, along with Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro and Philippine Ambassador to the UAE Alfonso Ver. During his stay, President Marcos will join fellow world leaders at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, a major international forum focused on unified global action to address challenges in energy, water, finance, food security, and environmental protection. In a statement before his departure, the president said the Philippines aims to contribute actively to these discussions, sharing national perspectives while learning from other global leaders. A key highlight of the visit is the expected signing of two major bilateral agreements: the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement or CEPA, the first free trade deal between the Philippines and a Middle Eastern country, and a Memorandum of Understanding or MOU on defense cooperation. The CEPA is projected to expand Philippine market access across the Gulf region, while the Defense MOU will strengthen collaboration in advanced defense technologies. President Marcos emphasized that the outcomes of the visit will benefit Filipinos at home and the 900,000 Filipinos living in the UAE, one of the largest overseas communities in the region. The chief executive will also hold business meetings and meet with members of the Filipino community. Ambassador Ver earlier noted that this second visit in just 14 months underscores the deepening ties between Manila and Abu Dhabi, with growing cooperation in climate adaptation, renewable energy, the digital economy, and artificial intelligence. The trip is also historic. President Marcos is the first Philippine leader to visit the UAE since 2008. To ensure uninterrupted government operations while the president is abroad, Executive Secretary Ralph Recto, Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III, and Social Welfare and Development Secretary Rex Gatchalian have been designated as caretakers.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine Ambassador to the United Arab Emirates or UAE, Alfonso Ver, said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s visit marks a clear acceleration in bilateral ties between Manila and Abu Dhabi. According to Ver, this is the president's second visit in just 14 months, following his trip in November of 2024. Before these back-to-back engagements, the last Philippine presidential visit to the UAE was 15 years ago, making the renewed frequency both symbolically and substantively significant. This year's Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week is expected to gather 12 to 14 heads of state, including President Marcos, reinforcing its role as a venue for high-level global dialogue. During the visit, the Philippines and the UAE are set to finalize several key agreements, including the long-negotiated Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement or CEPA, the country's first free trade deal with a Middle Eastern nation. Ver said the CEPA will expand cooperation in trade, services, and investments and open wider access to the Gulf Cooperation Council market. A Memorandum of Understanding or MOU on defense cooperation is also expected to be signed. The agreement will strengthen collaboration through joint training, officer exchanges, and information sharing, leveraging the UAE's advanced defense capabilities. Beyond defense, Ver highlighted ongoing cooperation in counter-terrorism, transnational crime, illegal drugs, and human trafficking, noting that bilateral relations have expanded far beyond traditional labor concerns. He added that emerging areas of cooperation now include artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and the digital economy, sectors where the Philippines is building strong competitive advantages. President Marcos is also scheduled to hold business meetings and meet with the Filipino community during his stay in Abu Dhabi.
This is the second in about 14 months ng November 2024. So in a short span of time, dalawang beses na sila magkikita with His Highness, the President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the UAE. And before that, it was 15 years bago uli nagka-visit, no? So tapos biglang magkasunod. Symbolically and substantively, ang laki nung ibig sabihin nun, ano? Not just for the visit itself, but his attendance to the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Pag-uusapan natin dito, yan, mga how we deal with climate change, mga sustainable economies, renewable energy, something which are very important also to the Philippines. Alam mo, sinasabi nila, we're one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. So we need all the help that we can get. But aside from that, we're also here to share what we know para ibahagi at ibida rin natin mga ginagawa natin. Hindi lang, kasi nga, dahil malaki na experience natin dyan, alam na rin natin. No? And we want to share this to the world. And that is a very big forum. No? Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week is annual. And this, I just came from a briefing actually. And there are at least 12 or 14 other heads of state who are coming. In addition to that, yung signing agreements. No? One is the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which has been negotiated for a long time. We were one of the very first countries to be offered to conclude this agreement, and finally we're doing it. Training, exchange of officers, information sharing, kasi they are also a very highly developed defense capabilities here that we can benefit from. Like we also have a security agreement with them. On the civilian side naman, we share information on, for example, terrorism or transnational crime, ganyan mga drugs, mga trafficking of persons. So, iba na yung level. Ang gusto kong pakita, iba na yung level natin. It's all expanding into previously untapped na hindi natin kasi nga of course, the focus is on our workers, but now they see that we've elevated our relations.
Was Philippine Ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, Alfonso Ver.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before his departure for the United Arab Emirates, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. led a ceremony at Malacañang Palace on Monday to formally confer the rank of Rear Admiral on Andro Val Aboyon, Commander of the Presidential Security Command or PSC. Abayon, who previously held the rank of Commodore in the Philippine Navy, assumed leadership of the PSC on November 20, 2025, becoming its 43rd commander. The PSC serves as the Armed Forces' premier protective unit, responsible for safeguarding the President, the First Family, and the Malacañang Palace Complex. President Marcos approved Abayon's promotion to Rear Admiral on January 5, 2026. Before taking command of the PSC, Abayon held several posts in the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP. His assignments included leading the Naval Special Warfare Force, serving as Commandant of the Special Intelligence Training School, directing the AFP Leadership Development Center, commanding the Philippine Navy Special Operations Group, and heading the Maritime Research Information Center under Naval Intelligence and Security. He also previously led the Naval Intelligence and Security Group, Western Mindanao. A member of the Philippine Military Academy or PMA class of 1994, Abayon has completed extensive local and international training. His credentials include studies at the Joint Military Intelligence Training Center in Washington, D.C., the AFP Command and General Staff Course, the Development Academy of the Philippines, the United States Naval War College, and the National Defense College of the Philippines.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, authorities have intercepted a major shipment of suspected illegal drugs at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA, in line with Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s directive to intensify the government's anti-drug campaign. The seized packages, valued at an estimated 114.5 million pesos, were discovered during joint operations by the Bureau of Customs, NAIA, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA, and the NAIA International Agency Drug Interdiction Task Group. The operation, conducted on January 8th, yielded 16.8 kilos of illegal drugs and led to the arrest of 3 suspects. In a press briefing, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro said, "The successful interdiction reflects the President's order to tighten airport security and strengthen efforts against drug trafficking." The shipment, falsely declared as malachite stones and originating from Congo, was flagged during X-ray screening after showing suspicious images. Castro said the coordinated teams immediately conducted verification and physical inspection, preventing the contraband from slipping through airport controls. She added that Customs Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno has reaffirmed the agency's commitment to sustaining the administration's anti-drug policies to safeguard Filipinos from drug syndicates.
Illegal na droga na nagkakahalaga ng 114.5 million pesos nasabat ng mga operatiba ng Bureau of Customs at NAIA nang walang patayan. Sa isang operasyon ng Customs at NAIA kasama ang PDEA at NAIA Interagency Drug Interdiction Task Group, naharang ng mga otoridad ang ilang package na naglalaman ng illegal drugs nitong nakaraang Huwebes, January 8. Alinsunod sa direktiba ni Pangulong Marcos Jr., nahigpitan pa ang pagbabantay sa ating mga paliparan at pagpapalakas ng kampanya kontra droga. Ang mga nasabing package ay nakadeklara bilang malachite stones or malachite stones na di umanay galing sa Congo. Hindi naman ito nakalagpas sa masusing pagbabantay ng mga pinagsamang puwersa matapos itong dumaan sa X-ray inspection, verification at physical examination. Aabot sa 16.8 kilos ang laman ng mga nasamsam na kontrabado at nakatakdang sumailalim sa proper disposal ng PDEA. Nasa poder na rin ng ahensya ang mga individual na dinakip dahil sa kanilang pagkakasangkot sa pagpupuslit ng iligal na droga sa bansa. Ang Bureau of Customs sa pamumuno ni Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno ay naninindigang patuloy ang mga hakbang ng pamahalaan upang protektahan ang ating mga kapwa Pilipino laban sa mga drug smugglers.
Was Palace Press Officer Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Executive Secretary Ralph Recto is downplaying talk of a looming cabinet overhaul, firmly stating on Monday that there is no ongoing effort to reorganize the Marcos administration's official family. Recto stressed in a statement that there is no impending cabinet shakeup, adding that speculation about a major revamp does not serve any constructive purpose for the government or the Filipino people. As the president's chief alter ego, Recto underscored that all cabinet officials continue to serve at the pleasure of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., with their performance regularly evaluated by Malacañang. He reminded officials to stay focused on their duties, saying the Office of the President consistently reviews the work of appointees for the good of our people. Recto's remarks follow a media report claiming President Marcos was preparing what it called his most extensive cabinet shakeup yet, supposedly involving at least 9 officials. Malacañang has repeatedly emphasized that any adjustments in the cabinet remain the exclusive prerogative of the president and are based on performance, policy direction, and the administration's priorities.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DSUD, is widening the reach of the government's flagship housing initiative, the Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino Program, or 4PH, following the directives from President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. At a palace briefing, DSUD Senior Undersecretary Henry Yap said the program, initially focused on vertical housing, has now expanded under Secretary Jose Ramon Aliling to cover a broader range of shelter options. According to Yap, nearly all income groups now have access to housing choices, from subdivisions and condominiums to rental units. Yap also announced the revival and expansion of the Community Mortgage Program, which now targets more than 6,000 beneficiaries across 36 projects starting July. The Pag-ibig Fund, a key member of the shelter cluster, has likewise rolled out reforms, including slashing interest rates for socialized and economic housing. Yap noted that rates have dropped from 6.5% to 3%, making loans more accessible to more Filipinos. In line with the President's directive, DSUD has streamlined its permitting and licensing processes, aiming for zero backlog and faster turnaround for all actionable items. Other initiatives include adjusting the price ceiling for socialized housing, simplifying tax clearance requirements to reduce development costs, and creating a pathway for graduates of the 4Ps program to qualify under 4PH. For disaster response, DSUD deployed modular shelters and built around 20 bayanihan villages last year, particularly in earthquake-hit areas such as Cebu and Davao Oriental. Financial aid was also extended through the Integrated Disaster Shelter Assistance Program. Yap added that this year, the agency is rolling out Plant Smart, developed with the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST, and Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DNR, to accelerate the preparation of comprehensive land use plans nationwide.
Simula ng middle of last year, nag-expand na po kami ng ating pambansang pabahay para sa Filipino program. Matatandaan nyo, nagsimula ating programa na nagko-concentrate tayo on vertical. With the assumption of Secretary Aliling, pinalawak natin yung coverage natin. So ngayon, halos lahat ng decile ng ating mga mamamayan kaya na po or mayroon na pong corresponding programa ang pabahay natin. from subdivision to condominiums to rental housing. Sinimulan din po natin o ni-revive po natin ang ating community mortgage program. At pinalawak po natin yan simula noong July. At ngayon meron na po tayong tinatarget na over 6,000 beneficiaries over 36 projects. Ang ating isa pang miyembro ng ating shelter cluster, ang Pag-ibig Fund, ay nag-adapt ng mga numerous program kung saan ibinaba po natin ang mga ating interest rates for socialized housing as well as economic housing. From a high of 6.5%, binaba po natin to 3% or more than half po ang kinat natin sa interest rates. At ito ay naging mas responsive dahil mas marami po ang mga beneficiaryo ang pwedeng lumahok at makapaghiram po sa Pag-ibig. Gusto rin po namin ibalita na sa instruction ng ating Pangulo at sa instruction ng ating kalihim, ni-streamline po namin ang proseso namin sa DSUD para maging mas responsive tayo sa pag-issue ng permit at licenses. Ito po ay alinsunod din sa instruction ng ating kalihim na magkaroon ng zero backlog program para lahat ng actionable items ay magawa ng mas mabilis. Nagkaroon din tayo ng mga malawak na pag-uusap sa ating mga stakeholders, sa mga developers, sa mga urban poor groups. At last year, sa tulong po ng ating mga national government agencies, tulad ng DepDep, na-approve na po ang price ceiling adjustment for socialized housing. Na-issue po to noong December 1 at yung IRR na-issue rin po within that period just before Christmas. Sa tulong din po ng Department of Finance at Bureau of Internal Revenue, na-simplify din po nila yung requirement for the issuance of tax clearance para ma-entitle ating mga social housing developers para mapabilis po ang effect dito sa pagbaba ng cost.
Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development Senior Undersecretary Henry Yap.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, said the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, is receiving a 1.2 billion peso budget this year to strengthen emergency repatriation efforts and assist more Filipinos overseas. In a palace briefing, DMW Undersecretary Bernardo Olalia said OWA's Emergency Repatriation Fund will rise further to 1.286 billion pesos in 2026, alongside a 942 million peso allocation for the Alagang OWA program. Part of this funding supports the agency's OFW caravans, whole-of-government missions that bring frontline services directly to Filipinos abroad with the help of at least 15 government agencies. Olalia reported that as of November 2025, the caravans have assisted 63,161 OFWs, completing more than 145,000 government transactions across the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Ongoing caravans in Dubai and Abu Dhabi are being led by DMW Secretary Hans Leo and First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos. For 2026, OWA's total budget climbs to 4.2 billion pesos, a 26% increase from last year's 3.4 billion pesos. Meanwhile, the DMW's overall budget for 2025 stands at 11.7 billion pesos. Olalia added that the government's repatriation program has already assisted 3,723 OFWs who fell victim to scammers in Cambodia and Myanmar, underscoring the need for sustained funding and rapid response capabilities.
For OWA, ganun din po ang ating budget, no? Tumaas po yung ating tinatawag na emergency repatriation, 1.286 billion for 2026. And meron tayong tinatawag na alagang OWA na 942 million. yung alagang OWA natin, part of those expenses will be for the caravans. Ito po yung ginagawa nating serbisyo sa ating mga OFWs abroad na kung saan may whole of government approach tayo, hindi bababa sa 15 ahensya at departamento ng iba't ibang government po ang tumutulong para ilapit yung serbisyo, government services para sa mga ating OFWs abroad. No? As of November 2025, we are proud to say na nasa 63,161 OFWs ang natulungan natin sa abroad. At umabot po yon sa mahigit 145,807 na government transactions. Karamihan po ito ginaganap po sa Middle East, sa Asia at sa Europe. For now, 2 po ulit yung ating caravans na nangyari sa Dubai na kung saan nandun po yung ating secretary at syempre ang ating first lady. At sa susunod na araw, bukas po, gaganapin ang caravan sa Abu Dhabi.
Department of Migrant Workers Undersecretary Bernard Olalia.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.